What would you do if helping a stranger meant losing the biggest opportunity of your life? In today's emotional and powerful story, you'll meet Jose Daniel, a young man who gave up his chance at success just to help a woman in need. But what he didn't know was that she wasn't just anyone. She was the CEO, and she was watching everything. This isn't just a story about kindness, it's about justice, betrayal, second chances, and how life has a mysterious way of rewarding those with a good heart. Undercover Boss meets real-life redemption. Stay with us until the end, because this twist will leave you speechless. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if you believe in second chances. It was supposed to be the most important day of his life. Jose Daniel had spent weeks preparing for this interview, rehearsing answers, printing resumes, polishing his shoes, until they shone like mirrors. This wasn't just any job opportunity. It was the kind of position that could change everything for a young man like him. Strategic project manager at one of the most respected companies in the city. The sun was barely up. The street still carried the chill of dawn. He clutched his briefcase with one hand and checked his watch with the other. 10 minutes, he muttered. I can make it, if nothing gets in my way. But something did. Excuse me, young man. Please, can you help me? A woman's voice cut through the quiet morning air. Elderly, well-dressed, and clearly distressed, she stood by the entrance of a small shoe store, pointing at her broken heels. I'm so sorry, Jose replied quickly, glancing at his watch again. I really can't. I'm late for a job interview, but something in her eyes made him pause. Panic? Desperation? Maybe just loneliness? I just need you to buy me a pair of heels, she pleaded. Size 38. I can't walk like this. Please. Most people would have kept walking. Most would have said, sorry, not my problem. But Jose wasn't most people. He sighed, nodded, and turned into the store with her. Inside, he haggled with the vendor, even chipped in a few dollars from his own wallet when she came up short. It's for my wife, he joked nervously, trying to keep the moment light. If I don't bring these home, I might lose my marriage. The woman smiled softly. You're a kind young man. Thank you. He handed her the bag. She tried to offer something in return, money perhaps, but he refused. Just invite me for coffee sometime, he said with a half smile. Another day, though. Today I'm running late. And with that, he sprinted off, leaving behind a puzzled vendor, a grateful woman, and his best shot at the future. When Jose arrived at the company, the interview had already started. The receptionist barely looked at him. You're late, she said flatly. The position's probably gone. He tried to explain. There was an accident. I helped someone. Please just give me 5 minutes. I'm qualified. I have a degree in economics. Leave your folder, she interrupted. We'll call if something opens up. As he turned to leave, defeated, he didn't see the woman watching him from the top floor window. The same woman he had helped. The same woman whose heels he had bought. But she wasn't just an old lady in need. She was the CEO. And this was just the beginning. The hallway outside the HR office felt colder than it should have. Jose Daniel stood there, folder in hand, staring at the closed door as if it had just slammed shut on all of his dreams. How could a few minutes, a simple act of kindness, cost him everything? Inside the room, interviews were wrapping up. Laughter echoed faintly through the frosted glass. It stung more than he expected. He wasn't angry, just disappointed. Disappointed in how the world worked. Disappointed that doing the right thing had left him standing outside, while others who had arrived on time, perhaps less qualified, perhaps less decent, were already being considered. Still, he knocked. Excuse me, he said, gently stepping inside. A woman at the desk looked up without much interest. I'm here for the strategic projects manager position. I know I'm late, but if you'll let me explain, we're done for the day, she said sharply, not even glancing at his resume. You can reapply when another position opens. He hesitated. Can I at least leave my folder? A sigh. Fine, and just leave it there. He placed the folder down as if it were something precious, a piece of himself, his education, his experience, his ambition. And then he left, quietly. Across the lobby, a man named Paul Bastidas adjusted his tie and smiled as he was ushered into the CEO's office. He was confident, sharply dressed, and above all, on time. "Paul, I'd like to introduce you to our CEO," said Damaris, the personal assistant. A woman in a sleek black suit turned slowly. She extended her hand. "Nice to meet you, Paul." "Pleasure's all mine, ma'am," he replied, flashing a winning smile. But the CEO wasn't looking at him. Her eyes had wandered to the desk nearby where Jose's folder still sat. "What was that young man's name? The one who just left?" she asked Damaris, interrupting the introduction. "Oh, just another late applicant. Looking for any position, really." "Did he leave a contact?" "A folder, yes." The CEO paused, then firmly, "Find his number, call him, offer him something." "But ma'am," Damaris hesitated, "there's nothing available right now." "Then make something available." Paul shifted awkwardly, unsure if he should say something, but the CEO's attention had returned to him. "If you're the best candidate," she said with a sudden sharpness, "then I need you to review our last 3 projects, do a profitability analysis, determine which one should be replicated, which should be avoided. Use IRR, NPV, standard indicators. 2 days. Can you manage?" Paul straightened up. "Of course. Absolutely." She nodded without a smile. "Then follow me. I'll give you everything you need." But deep down, she was thinking about something else. A man who had given up his shot at this job to help a stranger who turned out not to be a stranger at all. 2 days had passed. Jose Daniel wasn't expecting any calls. He had already started applying elsewhere. Smaller roles, freelance work, anything to make ends meet. He'd all but given up on that company, the one where he had left his folder and a little piece of hope behind. So when his phone rang that morning and the voice on the other end said, "We have a job opening for you," he was stunned. "It's not the position you applied for," they clarified. "But we'd like you to come in and discuss it." It wasn't the interview he had prepared for, and it wasn't the role he wanted, but it was a foot in the door, and sometimes that's all a person needs. The receptionist didn't recognize him as he walked in again, not in this uniform, a basic gray jumpsuit, no tie, no folder, no ambition, at least not one that could be seen. "This way," someone said, handing him a mop and gloves. "Just make sure the offices are spotless, and don't touch anything on the desks." He nodded without a word. No one asked about his degree in economics. No one wanted to hear about his project management diploma. They just showed him the broom closet, and he entered it with dignity, because even though his title was now Janitor, his mind was still sharp, his dreams still alive. The first few days passed quietly. He swept floors, emptied trash bins, and polished windows while others passed him in the hallways without a second glance. But he watched and listened. He paid attention to conversations about upcoming projects, problems in logistics, the tension in quarterly reports. He even memorized what was written on whiteboards in meeting rooms as he cleaned around them. One afternoon, while wiping a conference room table, he overheard someone struggling. "These numbers make no sense," said a voice, young, frustrated. "How can I present this to the boss tomorrow?" It was Paul, the same man who had gotten the job Jose had once dreamed of. He stood at the table, papers scattered everywhere, muttering about IRR and NPV like they were foreign languages. Jose watched quietly, then spoke up. Gently. "Looks like you're projecting too high on your net cash flows. Have you modeled in a pessimistic scenario yet?" Paul turned, confused. "What did you say?" "I just meant, if inflation hits harder than expected, those projections will collapse." Paul stared at him. "You're the janitor." Jose smiled. "That's my title, yes, but not my brain." Then he turned and walked away. Later that evening, Jose stayed behind to clean, but he also stayed to think. He looked at the reports Paul had left on the table and shook his head. They were a mess. Formulas misapplied, logic inconsistent, assumptions unrealistic. Fixing it wouldn't take long. He could do it. He wanted to do it. But should he? Helping might mean nothing, or worse, it might backfire. Still, he whispered to himself, "Do what's right, always." And he got to work. The next morning began like any other. Jose Daniel arrived early, like always. He changed into his uniform, grabbed his mop and cleaning cart, and headed straight to the executive floor. But as he pushed through the glass doors, his breath caught in his throat. She was there, the woman with the heels, standing in the hallway dressed in a tailored suit and holding a coffee cup, as if she belonged there, which in fact she did. Their eyes met. "You," she said softly, surprised. "You work here?" "I do," Jose answered, slightly embarrassed, adjusting the collar of his jumpsuit. "It's not the job I wanted, but I'm grateful to have one." She took a small step closer, her expression unreadable. "I never thought I'd see you again." "Me neither," he replied, forcing a small smile. "Funny how life works." Before she could say more, her assistant approached. "Miss Alejandra, you're needed on a call. Mr. Cheo Fernandez is waiting." She nodded, then looked back at Jose. "Don't go far. We'll talk soon." And just like that, she was gone. Jose stood frozen. Miss Alejandra? So she wasn't just a random woman in need that day. She was the CEO, the same person whose company he was now cleaning? Suddenly, everything felt different. As he returned to his cart, he noticed something odd on a nearby desk, a shoebox. His eyes narrowed. It was the same brand he had bought that day. The tag was still tucked underneath. $25. He'd haggled it down to $23.50 to help her. She'd left the tag on. Had she known he'd see it? Or was this her way of acknowledging everything? Before he could think further, Paul entered the room. "I need to speak with you," he said abruptly, setting down a thick folder. "About the report." Jose straightened, careful not to look too smug. "You fixed it, didn't you?" "I helped," Jose said quietly. "That's all." Paul hesitated, then shoved the folder toward him. "I need more help." But Jose stepped back. "I'm just the janitor, remember?" "Come on," Paul whispered urgently. "I'll pay you. I need to deliver this today. If I mess up again..." He didn't finish the sentence, but the fear in his eyes said enough. Jose sighed. "You're putting the company at risk, Paul. You don't fix that with bribes. You fix it with knowledge. With work." Paul scoffed. "Spare me the lecture." Jose said nothing more. He picked up his mop and rolled his cart toward the CEO's office. Later that day, Alejandra stepped into her office and found Jose quietly dusting the bookshelf. "You shouldn't be here," she said gently. "I was just finishing up," he replied, not meeting her eyes. But she didn't leave. Instead, she asked, "Why didn't you tell me who you were that day in the street?" "I didn't think it mattered," Jose said, "and I didn't know you were you." Alejandra smiled faintly. "Well, I know who you are now." The boardroom was tense. The long glass table was lined with executives, assistants, and silent observers. In the center sat Paul, adjusting his tie for the third time, his hands slightly trembling. On the far end, Alejandra waited beside a man with a strong presence, Don Cheo Fernandez, the company's co-founder and majority shareholder. "I've come early," Don Cheo announced, his voice deep and firm, "because this project is critical. I expect everything to be ready." Alejandra nodded. "Yes, sir." "Paul will present." Paul stood up, cleared his throat, and opened the folder. Charts, graphs, and projections lay before him, but none of them made sense, at least not to him. As he stumbled through the explanation, it quickly became obvious. This project aims to increase long-term profitability by, he paused, flipping pages, by expanding import of product lines and reducing export on underperforming goods. Don Cheo narrowed his eyes. I know that. I want to know how, Paul stammered. With adjusted IRR models and NPV forecasts based on a favorable scenario. Show me the IRR, Cheo demanded. What rate are you using? Paul froze. The room did too. A long silence followed, heavy and uncomfortable. And then Alejandra spoke. He didn't write the report. The room turned toward her. What? Cheo asked. The man who did is not at this table. At that moment, the doors creaked open. Jose Daniel walked in, still in his janitor uniform, a folder in his hand. The room buzzed with confusion. Cheo raised an eyebrow. And who's this? He's the one who prepared the actual project plan, Alejandra said calmly. The numbers, the strategy, the risk modeling, all of it. Paul looked like he'd been struck. That's not true. He just helped a little. Enough, Alejandra cut in. Let him speak. Cheo gestured toward Jose. Well, janitor, impress me. Jose stepped forward, calm and focused. The IRR for this project is 23.4%, based on moderate scenario modeling, he began. But if logistics are optimized and cost synergies realized through vendor consolidation, we could push that above 30%. He flipped the page. The NPV sits at $28,450. But even under a pessimistic scenario, with discount rates of 12 to 15%, the project remains viable. In fact, at 15%, it still returns $3,200 in value. Cheo leaned forward, intrigued. Did you calculate sensitivity? Yes, sir, Jose replied. I used 3 discount rates, 10%, 12%, and 15%. I also ran a Monte Carlo simulation to test critical volatility scenarios, especially around inflation and global supply costs. The room went silent, stunned. This is more detailed than anything I've seen in months, Cheo muttered, then turned to Alejandra. Why is this man cleaning floors? Jose answered before she could. Because sometimes life doesn't care what you studied. It only gives you what's available until someone finally sees you. Cheo smiled. Well, I see you now, and I want you running this project under your name. Paul stood up, flustered. But he's a janitor. No, Alejandra said sharply. He's the reason we still have a company. The room was still echoing from those final words. He's the reason we still have a company. Paul's face turned red. He looked around the room, desperate for support, but no one met his eyes, not even Alejandra. He slammed the folder shut. You can't be serious? You're going to choose him over me? I'm not choosing, Cheo said calmly. I'm correcting a mistake. Paul took a step forward, but Alejandra stood between him and the table. You're fired, Paul, she said clearly. Effective immediately. Paul scoffed. On what grounds? On the grounds that you lied. You passed off someone else's work as your own, and you almost put this company's future at risk in the process. Cheo turned to one of the assistants. Make sure security walks him out. Paul didn't argue. He simply grabbed his things and stormed out, slamming the door behind him. For a moment, silence returned. Then Cheo looked at Jose. You never told anyone you were an economist? No one ever asked, Jose replied. And when I applied, the position had already been filled. Damaris offered me the janitor job, so I took it. I needed to work. Alejandra added, and when I saw him here, I didn't know who he really was until he saved the project. Cheo nodded slowly. Well, that ends now. He stepped forward and extended his hand. Jose Daniel, would you accept the position of project manager? Officially? Jose hesitated, almost in disbelief. Yes. Yes, of course. Thank you, sir. I promise I won't let you down. I know you won't, Cheo said with a grin. Now go get ready. Your new desk is waiting. Later that evening, as the office quieted down, Jose walked past the same hallway where he had once mopped floors. Only this time, he wasn't carrying a mop. He was wearing a blazer, holding a laptop, and a key card with his name on it. He passed by Alejandra's office and paused. She looked up. All settled in? Almost, he smiled. I just came to thank you for giving me a chance, for seeing me." She stood, walked over, and handed him a coffee. "Actually," she said with a soft smile, "I owe you a coffee, remember?" He laughed. "You remembered." "I never forgot," she replied, "and I have one more thing to ask." "Anything. What you did for this company, staying up all night, saving that project, how can I ever repay you?" He hesitated for a moment, then looked her in the eyes. "Well," he said gently, "you could let me take you out for dinner sometime. Not as CEO and employee, just two people who met in a shoe store." She raised an eyebrow. "Is that your official proposal?" "It's the only one I've ever felt this confident about," he grinned. She paused, then whispered, "All right, but only if you promise to never wear that janitor uniform again." They both laughed, and as they walked out together, past the place where it all began, the lights of the office flickered behind them, a quiet reminder that sometimes life doesn't reward you right away, but when it does, it changes everything. In a world where doing the right thing often comes at a cost, Jose Daniel proved something we should never forget. Kindness is never wasted. He didn't chase power. He didn't seek revenge. He simply stayed true to who he was, and life rewarded him in the most unexpected way. One small act, one stranger, one pair of heels. That's all it took to rewrite a man's destiny. So the next time life tests your patience, the next time you're asked to help someone, even when it's inconvenient, remember this story, because sometimes the smallest decisions lead to the biggest changes. Tell us in the comments, would you have helped her? Drop A if this story moved you, and don't forget to subscribe for more life-changing stories that remind us the good guys still exist.